In this video, we will go over the steps in creating the third chair of a video series that showed how to do the first two. In the series, the third chair was supposed to be a teaser, but I thought it would be good to explain some of the steps used to create it and help elaborate on that video. I'd like to cover some sizes though that we will be using because the video did not really clarify that. We're going to make a seat that's going to be 18 inches by 21 inches by 1.5 inches thick. The legs will be a 2-inch square legs that will be 16.5 inches high, and that will put the chair at an 18-inch seat height. And for the spindles in the back of the chair, we're going to have them be 1/2 inch radius. With those pieces of information, we can create a chair that looks very similar to the one in the video. So let's first look at the video, and then we'll pause and build the chair in our SketchUp model.
I'll start by creating the chair seat, rounding in the back end with arc and push-pull, and then I'll group this into one object.
Pausing the original video, let's go back to our SketchUp model. To begin, we will create the seat. Use a rectangle tool or type in R for rectangle. Click a point on the surface, move diagonally across, and then type in 18,21. Enter. We want to look downwards onto this plane because if we looked at the horizon and created a rectangle, it would be actually floating vertically, and that's not what we want. Type in P for push-pull, click the surface, move upwards, let go of your mouse, type in 1.5, enter. That'll give us the 1.5 inch height. And then an item that video did not speak about is using the tape measure tool to create guidelines, but I find that very helpful. That'll position our points well across the back of our seat. So select the tape measure tool or type in T for tape measure, that's the shortcut. And hover along this edge and you'll see this red dot. Click, move across in the green and type in 18. Enter. That will be our 2 points where we'll input our arc, so they line up across from each other. The arc tools, there's a variety of them we can use, and I certainly encourage you to look at them and play around with them. But the one we're going to be looking at today is this one here, the 2-point arc. Basically, they want to provide the 2 points and then the bulge that is created off those 2 points. And the cursor also gives you a hint of what you need to do. For example, our cursor has an arc with 1 dot on it. Basically, it's giving us a visual clue that we need to put down the first point. Click. Notice the cursor changed now to 2 points. Let's do the second point. Click. And then you can see the cursor asks for the bulge. Now, I don't want to go all the way to the edge. It really isn't bad, but it's just going to cause a little bit of trouble later on in the way this model develops. So I'm going to go just kind of close to it, but not touching. So don't touch this point. Just kind of hover away from it a little bit and click. And we've separated that back area from the seat itself. Type in P for push-pull and click this back surface. Go down, and as it touches the bottom plane and you click on it, it disappears because the 2 planes touching each other makes that surface go away. At this point, I no longer need the guideline, and it's a good idea to clean the model as you go. So I will use the eraser tool and erase it. I can also go under Edit, Delete Guides. That's a quick way of getting rid of all the guidelines in the model that are not used anymore. Hit the space bar to get the selection tool and triple click on the seat. Right click, make component. The video told about making a group, but I prefer to make components on all my SketchUp models. Find components is a good thing because it also names each component as you make them. This one will be called seat. You can see that the component has been made, a bounding box has been around our shape, and we can proceed to the next part of the video.
Now looking underneath, I'll draw one rectangle, select it, and turn it into a component, calling it chair leg. I can then easily copy this rectangle around, and when I open this component to work on it, pulling the leg down pulls all the legs down. You see, any copies of a component share attributes, so no matter how many copies there are, you only need to change one component to change them all. Let's work on the upper chair and use this idea of components again.
Following the steps in the video, let's orbit to underneath and create a square in one of the corners. So using the rectangle tool, type R for rectangle, I'm going to put my cursor here at this corner, click, and move away and type 2, 2. I find that's a good shape for the rectangle. Hit the space bar and double click on this rectangle, and when I do, I select the surface and the edge. It's kind of hard to see, but there's like little dots on here to say that surface has been selected. Right click over that shape and select Make Component. I'm just going to call mine leg. You can call yours chair leg. Either way is fine. One other caveat too, make sure that this is always checked. Occasionally that does get unchecked. So just make sure this is always checked, and that when you do make a component and you do want the component replaced by the shape replaced by the component, that it does so. Hit create. And so this is now a component. Type in M for move, and I'll click this corner here because I'm going to basically make a copy of this component over here on this side. And so this corner here will line up with that corner. So I selected the move tool, it's already active. I'm going to tap the control key and that will make it a copy. I believe you can use the command key for the Mac. And click this point right here, click, and go across the seat to this point here, click. Now I can select both of these by using the space bar to make a selection tool, hold down the control key, which I believe is shift in a Mac, click, and both of these are now selected. M for move, tap the control key or option key on a map, click, and click back here, and now we have all 4 chair legs in position. I need to now go into one of these components to get the length. So I use the space bar to select, and I'm going to double click one of the legs, and then I'll type in P for push pull. Click the surface, move downwards, and type in 16.5, enter. That's the height of the leg that we have decided. And we chose that so that when the chair is completed, the seat is 18 inches off the floor, which is the typical height for seats. Here we can see how components work. Whatever happens to one component happens to all of them. And so all the chair legs went down. I don't need to work any more on this. We'll work on this later in this video. But I can just use the space bar and click outside, and I'm outside. It's important to be aware of whether you're in a component or out of a component when you work. If I double click, you can see the world becomes kind of grayed out or washed out, and you have a bounding box over the component. I'm going to click away, everything becomes natural color. Let's go to the video and follow the next steps.
I'll create one circle, pull it up, and make it a component. Then create a quick array using the Rotate tool.
So let's orbit to the top, and let's make a circle on the top using the Circle tool. Tap in C for circle, click, move outwards, let go of your mouse, type in 0.5, press enter. And that will give us a similar circle here to the size of the video. P for push pull, click, move upwards, click. And right now we just want a height. It doesn't really matter the length of this quite yet. Triple click the object so that you have the whole thing selected. Right click, make component. I'm going to call mine spindle. create. Now I'm going to use the move tool. It's still selected, so I can just type in M for move. And I'm going to use a relative move. In other words, I don't need any specific point here to touch any specific point here. Not like the underside where I wanted this chair leg to be right up against the bottom of the seat here. I need this one could be just somewhat away. So I'm going to use the relative move and click out here on this surface and kind of move my mouse. And when I like what I see, I think this is about right. I can use maybe my scroll wheel and orbit around a little bit, and I'm going to go click. That looks like a good spot for the first spindle to be. Then she spoke about a rotate array. So rotate tool looks like a pair of chasing arrows here. It's the letter Q, keyboard shortcut, and you get this protractor kind of graphic on your cursor. And basically we need to select three things. The point that is going to be the fixed point upon which things will rotate. Then the opposite point where the rotation will start. I tend to call it my zero angle. And then finally, where it's going to go to, and that could be something done visually, or you type in a number. In the video, she picked the midpoint of the chair right here. So I'm going to move my cursor up or down until I get the midpoint of the seat. I'm going to select click. And now that point is fixed. In other words, I will be rotating against that point. Then I'm going to move my cursor, and I like to go past the underside of the spindle, but imagining where that line would intersect the underside of the spindle. And then click out here somewhere. Click. Tap the control key so it's a copy. If I don't tap control now, it's just a move. Tapping the control key makes it a copy. And then again, I eyeball the other location of the leg where I think it works pretty well. Click. And now I can select how many divisions is going to happen there. I'll type in 5/ or 5 divide and press enter. And now that back area has been broken to 5 equal segments, so we have nice spindles back there.
Now I can easily adjust the height as needed, or add detail as well to all of the chair posts at the same time. Another great tool to explore is the offset tool. I can use this tool to create a curved shape for the chair back. And after drawing all the edges to create a closed loop, I'll select the shape and copy it upward. Then pull it into a chair back. Sometimes it's just easier to create a shape based on other geometry, then move it to where it's needed. I can erase the original shape now. A few adjustments, and this chair is coming together.
Now I can go ahead and select one of these and make it the height that I would like. So, using the push-pull tool, select the top surface, and I'll go up, and I can go up and make it like a tall shaker type chair, or maybe a lower, maybe Art Deco type kind of chair. I'm going to just do something kind of halfway, kind of contemporary chair back, and call it done. Whatever I do to one component happens to all of them, so these all got the correct height. Hit the space bar and click away. So now we can build new geometry from existing geometry. And what we're going to do is double click on the seat and select the offset tool, which looks like a pair of arcs. The keyboard shortcut is F. And if you see, when you go to this edge here, you can select the whole seat bottom if your cursor's in the middle, or if you go to an edge, you'll select just that edge. I'm going to select the edge and click and come inwards until about the spindles will be halfway in the bottom there, so it looks about right, and click again. Notice the line is dark, meaning it's not been broken the surface, and so I'm going to use the line tool, press L for line, click this back end, click, go to this edge, click, press escape to get out of the tool, go back to the other side, click, and go to this other end, click. You should notice right away that the line becomes thinner and you can select one or the other. That is what we want to see happening. We'll select this back end, use the Move tool, and I want to tap the Control key because I want it to be a copy. Click, and I'm going to go up in the blue. It's so easy to get off angle by mistake, and you might think you'd be going up and you're really not. You can hit the up arrow key on the keyboard, and then just go up in the blue till you get to the top there. Then we'll use push-pull, and push-pull that up a height that you like. Again, some people like a deeper back, some want a very shallow one. It's whichever one you think looks pretty good. Click the space bar and click away a bit. So now, looking at my spindles and relationship to the back needs to be a little bit longer. So I will use the push-pull tool, tap in P for push-pull, select this back, click, and go out a distance that looks right. Click. And then to repeat the same distance, I'm going to orbit to this side and double click on this end. Because once you have a certain distance in memory of push-pull, you can double click and they'll repeat that same distance. One thing I like to get rid of is these lines. And these lines are there because this is a straight portion meeting a curved portion. Curved portions are made out of straight portions. If you go to View, Hidden Geometry, you can see the segments that are created, the cylinders and this back end. If I try to erase this solid line, I will actually erase part of the model. You can see what happened there. What I would like to do instead is to soften that and make it become part of that curve. If I use the eraser tool and hold down the Control key, I believe it would be the Option key for Macs, and click on that line becomes softened. Same thing on the other side. And when we go to View, Hidden Geometry and take it off, that line is not going to be a hard line there. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Click. Click. And I am using the Control key each time. I can go ahead now and erase these lines down here. Again, it's a good habit to get into to remove geometry that's used to create other geometry guidelines as you go so you don't snap to something by mistake.
Just for fun, let's introduce one more tool. Let's bevel this chair seat with the Follow Me tool. Draw a shape and use the Follow Me tool to pull that shape around the whole chair seat.
So we're going to create a little wedge shape in the front, and we'll carve that out of the seat using the Follow Me tool. Let's start with a line tool and basically go from edge to edge. I like to have it be relatively shallow. Something looks like this. Using the Select tool, make sure you can select each part separately. Otherwise, you may actually have a gap, or you may not have actually gone to edge to edge. So this surface is broken, which is what I want. The video shows taking the Follow Me tool and wrapping it around the seat. A quicker way of doing this would be to select the path the tool is supposed to choose, then the Follow Me tool, then the profile that's going to follow the path. So in other words, if I select the path, I can click on that surface. By clicking the surface of the seat, I'm actually selecting all the edges. Then the Follow Me tool, and then click this little wedge right here, and it is carved out of the seat. I find this technique faster to complete. If I didn't want to go all the way around the seat, perhaps only partially, I would have selected the lines, holding down the Control key, and then selected the Follow Me tool and then the wedge. But in this case, I did want the whole seat selected. We were inside the seat component. One thing to notice, however, is the back. Now that the seat has been carved out, the wedge has been carved out of the back, the spindles are sort of floating. Get out of the component by clicking away. Double click on the spindle. Select push-pull, P for push-pull, and click the bottom, and then just go down into the seat. And now this looks like I would expect. Hit the space bar and click away, And then let's work on the chair legs using a similar technique. So let's go back to the video to see how she did it.
We can use this tool as well on the legs. I'll draw a profile to make the legs more interesting. Then use the Follow Me tool to pull the shape around the leg.
Using the Selection tool, I'm going to double click on one of the chair legs, and I'm going to create myself a couple of guidelines with the tape measure tool. I find I don't want to get too close to the middle or touch the outermost edge with this next technique, or I could create some funny shapes. So I'll use the tape measure tool, come in on the outermost edge, just hover here, click, and then go across the front and type in 1/8, press enter, for 1/8 inch. That will create a guide 1/8 inch away from the edge. Then do the same thing again on the outermost one and going across and type in 5/8, press enter. So now I've got 5/8 inch away from the outside edge and a 1/8 inch away from the outside edge. I'm going to draw my profile between these pairs of lines. Using the line tool, I'll start on this outside edge here, click, and then I'll go in to perhaps here, click, go down a distance, click, come out a ways, click, down, click, in, click. Then we'll go all the way down to match the chair leg profile from the video. You could have additional profiles as well. Then to make it a bit more interesting, I'm going to use this 2-point arc again, and I'll click a point here, click, and a point here, click, and move outwards just a bit, click. I can move out all the way to this outside guideline if I so choose. Then use the eraser tool and erase any extraneous lines. And we're ready to use the Follow Me tool to finish this shape. So as before, I'm going to select the path, then select the tool, the Follow Me tool, then the profile that's going to follow the path. So orbit to the underside, use the space bar, the path will be the bottom of the chair leg. I want it to go all the way around. Then select the Follow Me tool, then the profile that's going to follow the path. And there you have it. The chair leg is roughly similar to the one in the video. Sometimes when you use the Follow Me tool, you'll get odd shapes or strange front-back face situations. It depends on the complexity of the shape. The lines have been drawn. We've got some arcs and some curves here. And so now I will orbit to the underneath, use the Selection tool to select the base, use the Follow Me tool, and select the outside piece to revolve around. Occasionally things like extra lines that might be created, or pieces slightly missing, little holes in the model. To solve this, I'd select the whole piece, make sure you're in the component, right-click Intersect Faces with Model to make sure that all the intersections are there, and then you can go and erase these little pieces here. We don't need the guidelines anymore. And then coming into this area here, we can just draw in the lines that are missing. If you do a little line from here to here, all of a sudden that wedge is closed off. Same thing here. And then you can't erase this line, but you can soften it using the eraser tool and the control key. That cleaned up that little bit. And then this part here, depending on whether the lines are there or not, occasionally when I see this happening, these lines are softened. So when I see these lines soften, you select that surface, you try to reverse faces, something like this might happen. What I recommend when that happens is you go to View, Hidden Geometry, and then select these individual surfaces and reverse them. And then go to View, Hidden Geometry to take those geometries off. And now this piece is ready to go. It's been cleaned up. We no longer need the person in this model, so I will delete this person and then select the whole piece, right click, make component, and call it chair. And then move this component to the origin. Move tool, I'll select one of the corners of the leg and then put it right at the origin. That's where the green, red, and blue axes all meet. And click away. So now when you insert this model into another one, the insertion point brought in will be at this axis. Hope this video was helpful in explaining the steps and the tools used for that third chair.